So in conjunction with all the ventilation that we've been talking about, we also want to address filtration because this is one of the mitigation strategies that's in this matrix. And I want to address the fundamentals associated with filters so that folks have an idea of the conversation that's going on and why this is important when we're talking about indoor air quality and transmission risk and minimizing transmission risk. So filters are going to be present in all HVAC systems, but not all filters are equal. And filters, you're used to them in your everyday life. You've got them in your automobiles, you've got them in your window air conditioners, in your furnaces, in your home. The filters are the physical, usually fabric media that is physically removing the particles from the air. So anything that was in that airstream is going to then be captured on that filter. Filtration and the number of air changes, they go hand in hand because you need to physically move the air over the filter for the filter to be effective. And the more times you're moving the air over the filter, the more of the particles you're going to be able to remove from the airstream. You'll hear the term MERV as we're talking about filters. That's the minimum efficiency reporting value. And the key here is to understand that the higher the MERV rating of the filter, the more effective the filter is going to be. But we also want to make sure that we're matching the filter to the application. And so just as an example here, I showed that your window AC unit, it has a little removable washable filter. That's probably like a MERV 4. If you are thinking about a filter that's in a HVAC unit that's serving an operating room or an area where surgery is taking place in a medical facility, that's where you're going to see your MERV 16s and higher. So the reason we started talking about filters much more in a pandemic is that the medical professionals told us that the virus travels on particles of varying sizes. And so we want to be able to remove those particles from the air, from the breathing zone. And then that in turn will make the virus, it won't have a mode of transmission in the airstream. And we want to use these filters to decrease that concentration of particles that can be in the air that could potentially carry a virus. Again, this is important to the health now in a pandemic and beyond. We typically, we never want extra particles in the air that are going to impact our respiratory system. Most of the filters that I saw in HVAC equipment existing, that they were all about MERV 8, MERV 7 or 8, I say is probably the average of what I saw. And those are great filters. Those are designed for a specific purpose to take out a particle that is dust and mold and spores. MERV 13 is what ASHRAE is recommending upgrading to during the pandemic in your HVAC equipment if you can. And so what this table does is this illustrates to us that difference between the typical MERV 8 and the recommended MERV 13. And I want people to understand what the difference between those are. So what we can see here is I've overlaid the droplet size or the droplets in the aerosols that the medical professionals are telling us how viruses can be transmitted and how those relate to the size to the MERV rating of the filter that could remove those from the space. So we see that a MERV 8 filter is going to do a pretty okay job removing some of those much larger particles, but it's not going to help in the mid and the smaller size particles. For MERV 13 filters, you're going to gain the ability to remove more of the larger particles, and also you're going to have the ability to remove some of the smaller particles from your breathing zone. The number one question that I received when working with facilities folks and schools is just the assumption that I can't possibly just take out a MERV 8 and put in a MERV 13. It's not going to fit in the existing filter bank, and it's going to drive up the static pressure drop. I'm going to be starved for air. This just isn't going to work. And I'd say that we were pleasantly surprised with the number of applications where a 1-for-1 replacement with the same filter depth was really possible. And we saw many applications where going from a MERV 8 to a MERV 12, 13, or 14 was very possible. I'm showing this table. This is from a common filter manufacturer and shows that there is about a 20% increase in pressure drop from a MERV 8 to a MERV 13 in the same depth filter. And some of the customers I've worked with, when there was concerns that this was going to decrease the airflow from their unit across the filter, what they were able to do is reach out to their filter supplier and ask for a sample. When that sample, they could put it in, make sure it fit in the unit, and they could measure the airflow to get a sense of feel confident that they were going to be able to maintain that airflow over a higher MERV filter. It's just nothing that we've ever really talked about before in terms of just a one-for-one replacement. And I will say that some schools were not able to get to a MERV 13 because of their equipment, but if you can get to a MERV 11 or 12, referring to this chart really shows you that you are making an improvement.